Hi everyone, this is Dr. Raquel Butler from Integrated Veterinary Therapeutics.
And Zoe Braddock from Equine Posture. And we welcome you to the Equine Functional Posture podcast, your ultimate source for insights into the influence of functional posture on biomechanics, health, and overall well-being of horses.
Whether you're a seasoned equestrian, an equine professional, or simply a horse enthusiast, this podcast is designed to help you understand the critical aspects of functional posture.
Tune in each week as we discuss practical tips, delve into expert interviews, and explore the latest research in the impact of functional posture on equine anatomy, physiology, movement, and more.
Let's create a world where we empower our horses to be in a mental, emotional, and physical balance. Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. We are actually talking to one of our participants of the Level 1 and Level 2 Equine Functional Posture course. So we'll get into that in a moment, but how are you today, Sophie?
Really well. We have just been having great conversations, so hopefully we can convey all of that in this episode and really show people why the course is so valuable and why we care so much when you hear how it influences people and impacts them positively.
Yeah, and Zoe has been probably instrumental in our development of this course in the questions that she's asked throughout the course. Like, I know that when she originally did the Level 1, it really pushed my boundaries to answer questions that she had that I hadn't actually thought about. So it's, that's one of the exciting parts of the course is that, we do have conversations and discussions around different concepts. So Zoe, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Hi there, I'm Zoe. I'm from New Zealand. I did the Equine Functional Posture course with Raquel and Sophie last year, both the Level 1 and Level 2. And then I actually liked it so much that I redid the Level 2 and then followed on with further training in bodywork. So learning from Raquel and Sophie really inspired me. It's fundamentally changed my horsemanship and has been one of the most valuable things I've ever done. A little bit more background about me. I've been riding for nearly 20 years. I had a background for a long time as a working pupil for a professional dressage rider, and also spent a lot of time coming up through Pony Club and hacking up and down the bush and the beach and all of those classic stuff. So quite a few years in horses, but still cannot overstate how much I learned through doing the Equine Functional Posture course.
So why did you come to the course in the first place? Like, what was your kind of driving motivation?
I had, there was two main things. I had a mare at the time, a thoroughbred mare who had been diagnosed with kissing spines a little while before. And I wanted to continue my work with her and keep learning so that I could keep helping her. I had had quite a bit of background in classical dressage, and I'd done a lot of classical dressage and handwork with her and brought her along really far with that and made her really happy. But I was kind of plumbing the depths of my existing teacher's knowledge on rehab specific stuff. It had been fantastic, but this was a really obvious next step. And then also I had found the process of learning to help Sasha so interesting that I picked up a lease horse who had had an old injury, who I'd worked with when she was younger, and I wanted to see whether I could keep learning how to help horses' bodies and see if I could bring her back into work. As well as that, I do just love learning, and I love learning about horses, and this is a really cool opportunity to do that.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely a good learner because you go home, you apply, you think, you question, and then you come back and it kind of is an ever evolving process. So you were talking before about the horse with kissing spine, and you said how your perspective was very different back then to what it would be now. Do you want to go through that a bit?
So I had Sasha for nearly 3 years, and unfortunately she passed away following a paddock accident between EFP level 1 and 2. However, when I did have her, when I first got her, I bought her because I felt sorry for her, and I was having the oddest things riding her. Like I'd get on and I just couldn't explain it. I desperately wanted to get off. And I was at that time a very confident rider and I'd had quite a lot of experience. And I couldn't tell you why I felt like I shouldn't be on that horse. And the feeling just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I actually quit riding her a very long time before I actually got her diagnosed with kissing spines because it was just so obvious to me that I shouldn't be on her back. But without the skills to tell you why, and with a lot of people around me sort of saying, hey, she seems fine, um, I didn't have anywhere to go with that intuition.
Yeah, so do you think looking back on that now, like if you looked at her posture or
Yeah, it's incredibly obvious. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's like I'm not saying I could diagnose a horse from 100 paces, but I could definitely look at that horse and go, oh, wow, yes, definitely something wrong there. Very wrong. Should not have been on that horse. Yeah, totally. And totally changed the way I look at horses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how did it change that way?
Well, but just before you go on to like the idea, you probably go into like, I know you bought gorgeous Una recently, but I was just going to say, when you're thinking about, you had that unconscious urge that you wanted to hop off Sasha. Do you think there were other things that you possibly were dismissing as misbehavior, either with her or other horses that you were seeing that now you would see as a bit of a flag for an issue? What would you say those kind of things are for you? Just in terms of people being able to say, oh yeah, this does possibly indicate something with my horse, or it's something that I should be keeping an eye out for, or something that I'm dismissing like stiffness or, something that actually has meaning or relevance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like she was a very angry horse in how she related to other horses around her. Even though she was quite gentle with me, and the anger never was directed at people or dangerous, but she had this grumpiness, which was kind of very consistent part of her personality while she was in ridden work, and which actually dissipated, and she became the happiest horse I have ever met. Once she was actually being managed in a way that worked for her body. Also, she was consistently girthy, despite being free of ulcers and having a saddle that was fitted like really, really frequently. Um, and I think I also suspect I could probably feel it through her back, feel the stiffness, feel that things didn't move as I'd expect. But surprisingly, she wasn't actually dangerous to ride. She was really compliant, I think is the sad word. Yeah.
I would say that there's probably a number of horses that I treat who fit that
Yeah. Yeah.
description. They're fairly compliant, but I would be very suspicious that they have underlying things like kissing spine. But yeah, it doesn't mean that they end up in a place where they're displaying aggressive, dangerous behavior under saddle. Sometimes they just don't.
Mm, hmm hmm
Yeah. You also mentioned the classical dressage aspect of it, and how you've done a fair bit of that sort of training, and how that kind of how the EFP course changed your
My
thought.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your perspective.
Yeah, I really have enjoyed spending a lot of time learning classical dressage in hand. I love it as a discipline and an art, and I have a lot of respect to both the practice and the people who I've learnt it from. Um, but I was really surprised by how much I learnt about in-hand work from Raquel specifically. A lot of the dressage in hand I'd done previously had been very precise. You were asking for a very particular movement from the horse to be performed in a repetitive way, and you expected a consistency and an immediacy. Whereas what Raquel taught me was about going much softer, much slower, having the horse own the movement rather than you prescribing every step. And I could see how that kind of brought horses back into their bodies and gave them this awareness that they didn't have with the other way of doing it. And that insight and that learning and that kind of switch for me has been invaluable and has totally changed not only how I work with horses on the ground, but I've translated it into a lot of my riding and just general training as well. And I really, really value Raquel for showing me a lot of that.
Well, I think both Sophie and I would say it's been instrumental in our journeys changing that for ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like once we came to that recognition, which we've talked a bit about in another podcast, how much it changed everything that we do with horses, just being so much more aware and mindful and yeah, I think like you said there, getting them to take responsibility for their own body is massive. We cannot reiterate that enough. So important. Soph, did you have a question?
Well, I was just thinking, if the way that you're working with them has changed, how would you say the observation skills as you're in the moment with horses has changed? Like, what are you seeing now that you wouldn't have seen before?
I think that's
Whether
such
it's
a great question.
emotional or physical, for
Yeah.
them, or psychological.
Yeah. I think that's such a great question, and it's almost a difficult question to answer because it's actually quite hard to sit here with my new knowledge and awareness and remember my old lack of knowledge and awareness. It's not until I do things like see photographs of horses I had in the past or things I was doing with horses in the past and like do like a shocked gasp, like that I realize how little I used to know. But going on, I've found the kind of the way I look at horses now, from like not just a physical posture standpoint, but how I look at horses, has really changed. And not just in watching how they stand or how they eat or how they interact in the pasture, but I've kind of brought it forward into watching how horses go under saddle and feeling horses as I'm riding them as well. In the past, if somebody told me, oh, that horse is on the forehand, that horse is leaning on their left shoulder or whatever, it would be actually quite difficult for me to see that, despite all of the years of experience I'd had, which should have given me that skill. But now it's so obvious and so easy to spot. And it's not like I have to pull out my phone and go through a complicated long checklist of everything to look at, although I don't think there's anything wrong with starting off by learning in a more kind of reductionist and regimented way, but it's like somebody wrote it on the sky. Yeah, that horse's posture needs some help with the stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny what you say about going towards something, a smaller segment of the body, and then coming back out. And I know when I was studying body work, there was the idea of being local. So observing something local, whether it's you're looking at a limb or a part of a limb, and then going global and thinking like, how does that integrate in the body? And then once you've thought about that for a moment, actually coming back to the local point and being like, oh, actually I was too harsh judging the movement. I didn't notice this, or I've now seen that, I should probably be concerned primarily concerned somewhere else. It's certainly a way of, having both is very valuable. And I know that most people, you do have to go through, maybe a stage where you think about certain places more so in the body, like you would consider, if you have a kissing spines horse, for you, maybe you think largely around their back for a while, like you're really considering the muscles of the back, the bones and the core muscles, because you're focusing on lifting the back, and you have less thought about lifting the base of the neck or engaging the hind limbs. And people go through phases, and it's understated that it just takes time. Like you actually don't, it's not like a subject at university where you learn a handful of things about amino acids and, a cycle in biochemistry, and you come out the other side with some technical knowledge. It's very deep and integrated throughout the whole body. But I mean, level 1 takes 7 weeks, including an intro week, and people nearly always see a change if they're doing the work and making the observations. So it's not rocket science, and you can start having big changes quite easily. Do you saw changes with Sasha and with God, you had another S horse.
I want to say, but I don't own the second S horse, and I was leasing her. So
Right.
she's a lovely, lovely horse. But if we're going to discuss physical stuff that changed, and I don't own her, I don't feel like I can do that on a podcast.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
So I'm going to call her the chestnut, because that's fair. So and she is a lovely horse, by the way, and her owner is fabulous, and I have all of the respect to them in the world. So yes, I did. Both with Sasha, who had already had a comprehensive rehab program. I saw really good changes for her in that first session, in that first lot of EFP1. And then also with the lovely chestnut as well. I mean, the lovely chestnut went from being, having many years off after basically an RSI structural issue, to then coming back in sound and coming back into work, which she would not have been able to do without the EFP stuff. And she had a lot of really big changes, even in just how stable she felt to lead, and in her ability to be for the farrier, and in her kind of awareness of her own body was fantastic. It was really valuable to do both courses with the lovely chestnut.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to watch her transformation and the journey that you had, with her through different realizations and observations and development of your kind of skills and knowledge over that time. But there was another big thing that the EFP course gave to you, which was not something that when, I developed this course, I considered as a, as something that would benefit people. But you then had to purchase a new horse. And could you talk about that journey and how the EFP course really helped?
Oh yeah, honestly, I made every dollar of the EFP course back multiple times in all of the vet checks I didn't do on horses. I went out after doing EFP level 2 and I bought a lovely little pony, and what a fantastically interesting experience that was after studying with Raquel and Sophie, because I found myself turning up to horses for sale, and I will confess, I looked about 100 ads, turned up to about 15 horses, sat on 4, vet checked 1, who passed with flying colours. That was Una. And I was finding I was going to horses that were for sale, walking in, clapping eyes on the horse, shaking the seller's hand, wishing them a good day, and then driving 2 hours home.
Can I just say,
yeah,
a lot of people would feel very frustrated with that process. Like I've helped people buy horses, and often they get to a point where they're just frustrated with the whole process. They've looked at a couple of horses and it just seems too hard. And I admire the way that you were happy to go through that process. That you were also okay with walking away when you saw things that didn't resonate with you. And that you also were aware, like you still believed you were going to find the horse. You didn't lose hope in that. And that you were empowered to rule out a lot of horses based on the knowledge that you developed.
I definitely had some advantages though, right?
100%.
Like I live in a big city. There was a lot of horses around. I had a decent budget for what I was looking for. What I was looking for was just a green-backed horse that had or unbroken within a certain age and size range. So it wasn't, I think if I'd been trying to find, say, a schoolmistress for a child, I would have struggled. But one hopes there is a lot of young, nearly unworked with horses that are sound, and one hopes. But no, it was a fun process. It took me about 6 weeks.
6 intensive weeks.
Very intensive weeks.
Yeah. But like it was really awesome process to see you go through, because as once people have done the level 1 and 2, like they go into the membership group, and so we still had contact with Sophie as she was going through, contact with Zoe as she was going through the whole process. And I think everyone in the community really appreciated you sharing your process. I think it was very helpful for them. And in talking about the community, unless you want to, do you have anything else to share about buying horse?
I just think I need to re-emphasize how good it was. What a fantastic experience it was to buy a horse after having that knowledge. And I think I should share this as well. The little pony I bought, Una, is hands down, bar none, by a million years, the easiest young horse I have ever brought on. And it is just because she is so balanced. She is so sound. She is so ready for this. Like, and so it's easy to her and she's happy to do it. And it's just, I think it's really easy to get used to working with horses that are struggling. And so working with a horse that isn't struggling is an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think I will ever go back to doing things another way. Like, yeah. It's been a real pleasure.
It's so funny. We just had been talking about the fact that, the link between behavior and physical issues in horses, and how, training is important. But if you took the most sound, balanced young horse, like you were just saying, the ease with which you would be able to train that young horse, their agreeableness and their willingness, you'd feel like you'd won the lottery if that was the only kind of horse you had to train.
Exactly. Like even if you think like take out the baddest stuff like pain and lameness and stuff, just having a horse who is well, like genuinely well in themselves makes they just learn faster because they've got the resources to do it. They can carry you with ease because they're balanced in their own body. It's fantastic.
Yeah, their nervous system is just in such a better state and like of alignment for learning. Like they're just sponges because their body they're not having to waste resources on like their own function. They're just able to quite easily integrate information.
Yeah, totally.
So you talked about, we talked about how you shared that process with the community, like of buying the young horse. What did you find was the value of having the community there throughout level 1 and 2? Because, we think that's a big value of this course is like having those like Q&A sessions, answering people's questions, but it's not just about me answering the questions, like there's a lot of value in the community. And would you like to kind of expand a bit on that?
Totally. I think there's if you don't mind me taking this a little bit deeper, a little bit meta. I think there's this real trend, and I've shared this with Raquel and Sophie before, where people who start down a more horse-first path and start really caring about their horse's well-being sometimes retreat into pockets of isolation and disengage with maybe more the communities they had been part of, but don't have anything else, and then end up very lonely and confused. And I especially think that's even more so when you're dealing with something like postural issues, health issues, rehab stuff with horses. It can be incredibly isolating. And I think being able to form a community around wanting to do well by our horses, wanting to help our horses be functional and have long, happy lives is just really lovely for people. It provides them with understanding from other humans. It provides them with friendships. Like I've met up with people from the EFP course like locally, and we've gone out and had coffees and catch ups, and I've chatted about it with friends, and we've tried it on each other's horses. And it's I think people need community, right? Especially people who are wanting to do things a different way.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be very isolating. I mean, I found that just being a vet, once I started to kind of have a bit of a different thought process, even now it can be quite isolating from the general kind of veterinary community because I think differently and question differently and do things differently. So yeah, when you kind of can find those people who are on the same path and support your view, then yeah, it's really, really beneficial.
Can I ask, Zoe, in terms of community, not just for emotional support, do you think that you learnt a lot from other people who maybe were sharing issues that weren't exactly what you needed, but the concept applied to your horse, or just it helped you in some way?
Absolutely, yeah. I really do. And I think especially because I'm not just trying to learn this stuff to help with one horse or my own horse right now. I'm wanting to understand sort of the broader trends and how things link together. So being able to see how people were going with their own horses and being able to see things like links between how the horse stood, how the horse moved, how the horse could do different exercises for all of these different instances, because every horse is a little bit different, really built up a wider understanding that I never would have gotten if it had just been me and Raquel one on one. Like, it's really valuable for learning to see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry.
I was just going to say, I still learn. I was just going to say, with people sharing, is particularly because we have, the modules through the weeks, people share something, whether if we're doing mobilizations that week, people share things, and somebody who puts their horse in a certain through a certain mobilization has a very different response to somebody else, and then we can discuss the why behind it. And I'm always reminded about concepts or people, owners notice things, and I'm like, God, that's like an intrinsically advanced ability to notice something. Like as soon as people tune in, they find that they actually have more ability to notice things than they think that they do. We always find. And then when we have a discussion, I'm like, oh, I just was reminded about something, or I learned something, or I'm like, oh, that was relevant to a horse I saw this week. Yeah, I'm still always learning from people who are sharing.
I would say the same thing, like people's questions and what they share, things that they kind of come across, throughout the exercises. Like there's always that element of learning for everybody, I think, regardless of your experience or expertise or what background that you come from. And the other aspect of that is that when we do talk about the application of the exercises, throughout the modules, it is individual. So even though, we give people the exercises to do, which everyone in the course at the time is doing it, everyone has a different experience with those exercises. And, the value of being able to support people through those individual experiences, also see what works, what doesn't work for them, and help them navigate that, is something that I think is very important, because often people are given exercises and they're just told how to do it this way, but then there's not always that opportunity for them to get the feedback on how they're doing it, and help them through that process.
I think I think this is a really good point, and why I think the value of the Q&As and Raquel and Sophie's feedback is so important is it's the difference between teaching somebody like in a checklist way. Like anybody can make a checklist of things you should do with your horse, right? But that checklist is infinitely long and
Yeah.
it's designed for some imaginary horse you've never seen. Whereas what Raquel and Sophie teach through EFP is how to apply this set of potential things that could help to your individual instance, and how to look at where your horse is actually at right now and try different things and go back and forth and get feedback, instead of it being like a steps 1 through 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the whole course is like that, because even though there's different modules, it's not necessarily that each module specifically follows on from the previous module. Like each module offers its own value within itself. And, I think that's also quite novel, in that you don't have to be able to do that before you can move on to this. Like there's ways that we can work within each horse's position. You obviously still have studied the bodywork course now. So because the course is tailored to all sorts of horse people. So it's tailored to horse owners. So you've come in as a horse owner, now you've done bodywork, also your kind of training background. But developed the course with the thought in mind that it was available to everybody. So horse owners, horse trainers, body workers, saddle fitters, horse care professionals, whatever other kind of professionals there are in the industry. So just coming from those different perspectives, how do you kind of see that value to all of those different people?
Yeah, definitely. I think I had a really cool experience that I did the EFP level 2 first as a horse owner, and then second after doing a lot of intensive bodywork study, right? So I got to kind of see it from both sides. Yeah, I got to be both people. And it was valuable for both. Because it was valuable when I had almost no pre-existing knowledge, and then it was valuable at a deeper level when I re-looked at it and could ask harder questions and see more of the layers, the underneath of the iceberg the second time, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've spoken to other people who did the same. The person who recommended EFP to me was a body worker with many, many decades of experience, and she found it incredible. And then also I recommend it to my friend who's a horse owner, who's a fabulous horsewoman, but doesn't have a lot of anatomical knowledge, and she also found it really valuable. So I do think it will help all sorts of people.
Yeah, awesome. That's that was one of my foundational goals there.
Well done, you did it.
Actually, just like thinking about, lots of different people coming into the same space and getting the most out of information. One funny point is that I did have somebody say to me when I was having a conversation with her, somebody who went through, early days, and her saying, "Oh, I've come back to look," and she said, "Oh, there's so many questions that I can draw and ask from this module." And she said at the time, like, you kind of read it, but you don't realize that, like, there's a lot of questions here and each one you can draw meaning from. And she said, which sometimes we do hear, oh, there's a lot of information, but we want people to get as much as you possibly can from it in the context you're in and be able to come back and make the most of it when you've shifted again. And obviously we've talked about you are doing things a little bit differently and seeing horses differently. Would you say that your satisfaction as somebody who's done in-hand work classically and then done this postural work in hand and come full circle back to riding a new horse, and you said you shifted the way you're riding, what would you say about your satisfaction and your joy in your interactions with horses now?
I have so much joy in my interactions with horses, and I think this is going to sound very esoteric, but I think learning about equine functional posture did a lot more for my open quotation marks feel than close quotation marks than a lot of other stuff did, to be honest. And I think that actually really trying to understand horses at a deeper level just makes you appreciate them so much, and it just makes all of it more joyful. And also, quite frankly, I'm a lot more successful now too, so then hey, maybe that's the joy. No,
but the success comes with the awareness, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And then it's like a lovely happy spiral loop where you get more awareness and more joy and you're more into it and on you go. Yeah, I think learning about stuff like this can be depressing. Like sometimes it's just an overwhelming list of everything that's wrong. But I think the way you guys do this and the community around it means it's not like that. It's something that can offer a lot of joy.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And yeah, just the idea that sometimes I do hear from people that I go to for bodywork, they'll say, I don't want to give up on my riding, or I don't want to give up on this because they think that once you're focused, like you're only, like you're going to be stuck in a constant loop of very unsatisfying, never getting back to riding, that you have to give up on all your goals, that you can't be competitive, and it just doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to, depending obviously on your horse and where they're at,
Yeah.
et cetera, but you don't automatically become, I don't know, a monk. You don't give up on your goals and give it all away. There's still satisfaction to be had in your interaction and in your achievements.
And I see where they're coming from because I've seen how people can do that. They get a little bit of knowledge, get really scared, and then they kind of get a bit paralyzed. They don't want to learn more, but they can't unknow what they do and get stuck in like a loop of sadness. But I think I can say hand on heart that I got an incredible amount of joy out of working with Sasha in hand. And if she didn't had an accident and I could do that for the next 20 years, that would have been incredible for me. And that would have been lovely. And I really honor that horse. But equally, I think it's like what is it? That's you're unconsciously incompetent and then you're consciously incompetent and the consciously incompetent sucks. It sucks. It sucks. But you move through that and you get on to the next stage of the cycle. And I'm sure sometime soon I'm going to find out I'm consciously incompetent again and that'll suck too. But if I wasn't willing to go through that, then how would anything ever get better?
Yeah, how would our learning evolve if we weren't willing to lean into the discomfort that is, I guess, reflecting on ourselves, our actions, and our horses. And I've seen a lot of people come through that. They've come through the process of going, oh my God, I didn't see that before. How did I not see that before? I'm a bad person or whatever. But it's important that we can move forward with that and develop a new perspective. Realize that horses have a hell of a lot of ways to offer us joy, and that there's a lot of options in working with them. And, I think it's important that we're constantly reflecting on our practice with horses, because of what they allow us to do and how giving they really truly are in their nature. So the more we can learn, the more we kind of honor them in that. Great. Well, do you have any kind of takeaway messages for people who are not sure, they're maybe considering the course, but they're not sure it's for them? What would you say to them?
I think that they should definitely do the course. It's a very good course. I do recommend it. And if they're on the fence, they could. I think just listening to your podcasts alone just shows how valuable the course would be, right? Like listen to the podcasts, look at the stuff online, realize that it's fantastic, realize that the course is like 10 times better, and then just go do the course. It costs, look at it like this. This costs less than a week, lesson every week for the 7 weeks you do it. And it's spending multiple hours talking to absolute experts about a subject you may never otherwise get the chance to learn in such an understandable and interactive format. I think it's incredible knowledge and incredible value for money and is well worth it. And think of all the vet check costs you'll save on all the horses you didn't vet check because you knew you weren't going to buy them.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's awesome. Sophie, do you have any takeaway questions or anything?
No, that was just such a lovely, lovely review. I would find, as somebody who gets to see every time, a new group of people come through, the satisfaction when people say, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because there is a growing awareness about postural issues, and certainly across social media, there's certainly a lot of demonstrative posts that are put up where the people are sharing transformations before and afters. They are biomechanical trainers who are taking horses and doing the work, themselves, and transforming horses either with an owner or sending the horse back to an owner. And when you see posts like that, I know for me personally, even, it's probably 7 years ago, when I was still an equine science student, seeing that kind of stuff, I had this feeling of that is an unachievable goal.
Yeah.
I don't relate to how you've described what's happening in the horse's body and the change that's happened. Even if I can see that, yes, the horse looks smoother and they're shiny and the spine has less dips and they're standing straighter, I don't fundamentally understand how you took a horse from here to here. And it felt like inadequacy, the idea of like, that is an unachievable goal. And yeah, I think it's most satisfying for me personally hearing people say that makes sense. Like, I have more clarity about that. So for you to say that your understanding's transformed, and mine has too, and it always is, like learning from people and from Raquel, I don't know, it's just it's a special place to be. It has meaning and it's fun, and
And you can do it.
and you can do it.
As the horse owner, or if you're a part of a team with a horse owner, like you're a horse professional, but as a horse professional, you can empower the horse owners to do it and create that change. And as a horse owner, you're creating that change within your horse. You're not relying on people to help, like people to do that change for you. And I think that's important in our relationship with horses. Like, I was talking to a young horse trainer on the weekend, and she's now helping people start their own horses. So she doesn't take horses anymore. She's, she goes and spends time with them and empowers them through that process. And I think, obviously, Zoe, you're lucky to be able to do that yourself too with Una, and through that whole process with her, because I think we have to realize that we can develop the skills and the tools to help our horses often more than what they can be helped by anybody else, like by any body worker, any trimmer, like horse trainer professional. We can empower our skills, knowledge, and tools to ask the right questions, but to kind of create that for our horse. And that's where, I really want to see more people feeling empowered to do that for their own horses.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Zoe. It was really great to chat to you. And thank you for your great feedback on the courses. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people see their way into our courses, we hope. So thanks a lot for that. Thank you for joining myself, Dr. Raquel Butler, and Sophie Vanderbeek, and Zoe in today's podcast. Enjoy your horse time. We have a webinar coming up talking about the relationship between posture or the physical body and behavior. So please join us for that, especially to join up to the Equine Functional Posture course, which is starting in June. We would really love to see you there and help you on your journey. We'd also love if you subscribe to this podcast, and if you loved it, give us a 5-star rating so that we can continue to share these valuable insights.
And we'll see you in the next exciting episode.